I don't know about you, but I am a huge fan of the MCU.
I am a huge fan. I've been watching them since they started coming out. I think the first one that came out was Iron Man.
Iron Man in 2008, yes, directed by Jon Favreau.
Hey, the year I graduated. Cool.
And I am on the opposite spectrum. I seen all the films, but the first one I saw in theaters was actually The Avengers in 2012.
Oh,
I've
really?
seen all the other ones before, but it was from the library or friends' houses and stuff. And I have made a list. My list is going to be different than everybody else's list, but I ranked them from 16 to 1.
From 16 to 1. See, I don't know if I can, rank them all like this one's my absolute favorite. I can tell you the ones I didn't like that much.
Yeah, so it's going to be interesting which ones I put on the bottom and which ones he puts on the bottom. So, number 16. Any guesses?
For your bottom? Let's see. I'm trying to get into your mind right now. I'm trying to be like a psychologist. We're gonna go. Oh, this is hard. Let's go Iron Man 3.
It is not. There's 2 films of the MCU that I do not personally own on Blu-ray. And there is one of the films that I own on Blu-ray, which I aren't very proud of, that I think it just sets up more MCU films. The worst MCU film, in my opinion, is Thor: The Dark World.
That was going to be around my bottom, too. Absolutely.
I think...
Terrible.
I don't think any MCU film is terrible, but I think there are 2 films, and they're both towards the bottom of my list, that they only exist to set up future films. And I think Thor: The Dark World, with the Aether getting the Infinity Stones out of the way, and I love Chris Hemsworth and I love Natalie Portman, but they have zero chemistry in either of the Thor films. And you look at, a lot of people say Marvel has a villain problem. To some extent they do, to some extent they don't. But I think Malekith is the worst MCU villain.
I think he could be a really interesting MCU villain, but they just did it wrong. He seemed like an emo elf. Like,
yes,
you wronged me a long time ago, and I'm going to hold a grudge because I've been hibernating out here in space.
Yeah, and then when the 9 realms align, I didn't really understand that, and then it's like, let's have an action sequence just for the sake of having an action sequence.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, I was not a big fan of it. It's watchable, but I just didn't, I didn't get the point of it. The storyline, it didn't grab me at all. Like, I wasn't really concerned about Natalie Portman, which is a travesty, I know, but it just didn't grab me.
Yeah, so, I mean, it just seemed like an action sequence to have the sake of an action sequence. And I don't think any of the MCU films are bad and unwatchable, but this is definitely the worst one in my humble opinion.
I would probably agree with you. I would probably agree with you on that one. And
now, going from number 15, the film that also, I think, sets up another film, and this film suffers because of it, Iron Man 2. This film is not a bad film, but I feel the only reason for this exists is for the Avengers to exist. It's so you have Black Widow in the world, it's to get Nick Fury in the world. The villain of Whiplash was very underwritten, and he's a very cool villain, but he was just very underwritten and very underserved. You had Rhodes, we have to have this movie to get him in the suit for the first time.
Yeah. He brought the ex-wife along with him.
And none of these films are bad films, but I just think Iron Man 2 is one of those films that is only there to set up future films.
I did like the inclusion of Hammer Tech in there. Like, that was one of my favorite parts of that movie. When they showed the video from Hammer Tech right in the beginning.
Yeah, of them trying to build different Iron Man armors.
Yeah.
And I think it's very interested in Doctor Strange, where he's like, there is this guy that had a malfunction with the advanced weaponry suit.
Oh, that was a complete reference.
They think that, yeah. And I think I love how the MCU does that.
Oh, yeah, it's wonderful. All these, the Easter eggs, quote unquote, that they hide in there that are allusions to other movies. It was awesome, and actually IGN pointed that one out.
Yeah, and looking at the MCU, I think the MCU has done such a better job of having their movie first and having their Easter eggs second. I have not seen the new Mummy movie, but I heard a lot about it's just to set up this dark universe. Mm-hmm. And instead of making a good Mummy movie, they're like, let's make a movie to set up the dark universe. Or you look at how the Avengers was, they already had 5 films before they got to Avengers, versus you look at DC when they're like, Batman v Superman, film 2.
Yeah, they definitely flubbed that one, because now they all of a sudden, DC is gonna throw, at least 3 different superheroes into this upcoming Justice League movie that we know nothing about. Like, you see Batman versus Superman, and you see, little snippets of, this guy is Aquaman, this guy's Flash, but we don't have origin stories for them, or any background information.
I don't really care about this DCEU. I loved the first 3/4 of Man of Steel, and then I know the comic books and the movies are different characters, but once Superman killed who he killed, and I don't think I like my Boy Scout Superman. I like the Christopher Reeve Superman, and I just don't like this version of Superman. So this deters me from future DCU, but they got me on board because Joss Whedon's taken over the director's chair for Zack Snyder after his terrible incident involving the death of his daughter.
Mm-hmm.
And that gets me right on board because I love the Avengers and I love Toy Story. And I'm going to make a lot of people real mad here, but I'm going to steer back to Marvel. I'm very excited for Thor Ragnarok, but Thor is my 14th out of 16th film.
Looking at it, it wasn't an overly good movie. It was just a textbook origin story. It laid out Asgard. It's like, oh yeah, this is Asgard. There are goddish-like people, and then it threw them on Earth.
Yeah, there are a lot of movies where let's have this awesome world, and then let's just go to Earth. And that's one of the reasons why this suffers. I think this movie suffers from the mythology, where I love Norse mythology, and you needed to have that to set up future films. But I think this movie suffers because it's too on the nose with mythology.
Like when you say it's too on the nose, like the inclusion of the Frost Giants.
No, it's I mean,
or more so
it's
we
too
were
much
gods at one time.
I mean, it's too much like exposition to get onto future movies and to get them to Earth.
Mm-hmm.
To set up what's going to happen with the Avengers and stuff.
Yeah.
And, I mean, there's exposition done well. It can benefit a movie, but I just think there was too much exposition.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it might have needed that, but it's not a bad film, and I enjoy this film, but this and Thor: The Dark World are the only ones I don't own on Blu-ray. And I just think they set up future films. I'm really excited for Thor Ragnarok, but I think of the solo films, Thor is definitely on the weaker end.
Well, I think you should be excited about Thor Ragnarok because it's obviously going to be different than the other 2 Thor movies. It's having more of a fun feel because Thor was this redemption story. He was a snot-nosed kid, and then we had the emo elves. They were both kind of, Thor wasn't dark, but it wasn't light by any means. And then the Dark World, as the name implied, it was dark.
But what gets me excited for Ragnarok is, like I said before, Taika Waititi, which this is a guy that comes with a comedy background, and they said this is the most comedy-centric film. And I think that very intrigues me, and there hasn't really been a good comedy for a while.
Mm-hmm.
And I want I was talking about Ghostbusters early. Ghostbusters is a great comedy, but it seems like every comedy nowadays is just, raunchy, and it's not the good, heartfelt, family-friendly comedy.
Yeah. Even another Marvel movie that I think is definitely more comedic is Guardians of the Galaxy. But, like you said, it's not something you can let your 10-year-old watch because there's a lot of male humor, we'll call it.
Yeah, so moving on, number 13, I'm probably going to get a lot of slack because I probably have this film a lot higher than most people. The Incredible Hulk with Edward Norton.
I like that one.
I think the problem with this movie is what happened behind the scenes, where Edward Norton got replaced by Mark Ruffalo, and I think Edward Norton is a great actor, but I love what Mark Ruffalo brings to the character, and I think that the Incredible Hulk is so much like the TV series of the 70s or the 80s, where he's on the run from himself.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the reasons why I love the Incredible Hulk is of the 16 Stan Lee cameos he's done in the MCU, and of the other cameos that he's done in Spider-Man and X-Men movies, I think the one from the Incredible Hulk is great, where he's getting a bottle of soda from the fridge, and then it's tainted with the Hulk blood.
Oh, yeah.
I love that cameo.
And it was a nice plot device, too.
It was a good plot device, good Stan Lee cameo. And again, there are 16 films in the MCU, and everybody's list is going to be different. This is another film that I think I have much lower than other people would. It is Avengers Age of Ultron.
See, I wasn't a huge fan of Avengers Age of Ultron. Like, I could watch it, and I was entertained, but I just wasn't impressed by Ultron.
Yeah, I think this is one of those movies that I enjoyed it a lot on the first viewing. I think the second viewing and the third viewing, really, I still enjoyed it, but it's a little boring compared to parts.
Mm-hmm.
And I love what James Spader did with the Ultron character. And Ultron is such a great villain, but I wish they would have... The problem with the MCU is they have one-and-done villains. I think Ultron could have been a villain that you could have carried over. I know they're doing that with Thanos.
Mm-hmm.
But I want to see more Ultron. And I love the Vision scene. I love the Vision stuff. And this is not the bad movie. It's just how great their other films are.
Mm-hmm.
I think, and that's why Age of Ultron is 12 on my list.
It just kind of falls flat compared to the others.
Yes. So the bottom 5 films that was pretty easy. The hard part is this middle section, my 11 to 6 film. And I feel really bad putting this film this low because I love this film, and this film is so different than every MCU film before that, and that's because of the direction of what Shane Black went with it. And this is Iron Man 3.
I'm okay with having it as low as this. I was not overly impressed by Iron Man 3.
I love the fact that this is a Christmas movie and it's set during Christmas time, even though it came out in the middle of May. And I think the interaction of Tony Stark with, I can't remember the kid's name, but he's also in Jurassic World, and how he's kind of mentoring this kid, really sets him up later when he's dealing with Spider-Man and Homecoming.
Yeah, I did enjoy that interaction with the kid and the little, him interacting with people in the hometown, and then the villains show up and wreck everything.
I know these are very popular movies, but this is very controversial of the direction they went with the Mandarin, but I love the direction that they went with the Mandarin, where he's this actor being paid, and then there's the big overall villain that's kind of puppeting him.
I thought that was a funny twist. I think a lot of people had a gripe because in Iron Man lore, I believe that the Mandarin is just he's one of the big archenemies to Iron Man. So people were upset. They almost felt like that was a disservice to the Mandarin.
Yeah, but you gotta remember, before 2008, Iron Man was the C-list character, and what made the MCU so great is they weren't dealing with their Spider-Mans, they weren't dealing with their X-Men, they had to take their B and C-list material and make it great. And I think Iron Man 3 went in such a completely different direction, like when has half the suit on and he has like a pistol in his other hand, and they add more comedy to it.
Mm-hmm.
With he borrows his friend's watch, and it's a Dora the Explorer watch, and he's like, really a Dora the Explorer watch? Hey, it's limited edition, and then they carry that joke on 2 or 3 more times.
I also do have to say, I love the House Party Protocol.
The House Party Protocol is great.
Yeah, I love seeing all the different suits that he had.
But my biggest gripe with Iron Man 3 is continuity, where at the end he's like, okay, I'm done being Iron Man, because his contract was up after the next Avengers, and then he re-upped his contract, so it's kind of like he's done being Iron Man, but now he's Iron Man again, and they don't really explain that in the Age of Ultron at all.
Yeah, they don't. That's a good point.
But I think, overall, I enjoyed Iron Man 3, and it's a shame to put it number 11 on my list, but it's just a testament of how great the other films are.
Mm-hmm.
And now I might get a little... This is one of the newer ones, and it's a good, enjoyable film, but I like the other 9 films on this list better. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2.
Oh, you break my heart, Justin. I loved Volume 2. I liked it better than number 1.
You did?
Yes.
I mean, all film is subjective, because all art is subjective, and film is art. The problem I have with Guardians of the Galaxy 2 is they basically added tension to add tension, and how they started off and they're having all that conflict of who's going to steer the ship and stuff after they were pretty happy-go-lucky family at the end of the first one.
Mm-hmm.
And I love the fact that where they went with Ego, and Ego is one of the stronger MCU villains.
Mm-hmm.
And the personal connection that it is his dad after long lost, and that heart-wrenching moment where he crushes the Walkman. And Baby Groot is amazing, but I just think the first one is so different, and it's just the first time you see it. Like, again, why I like Avengers more than Age of Ultron is it's different, but I've seen a lot of it before.
Mm-hmm. See, I just felt like the first Guardians of the Galaxy had too much of an origin story feel.
I felt the exact opposite. It had that origin feel, but it went and it got it done quickly to get onto the action to set it up where he needed to go.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm actually one of the people... I know Ronan gets a lot of slack for being one of these bad MCU villains. I think Ronan did his job adequately.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I know Marvel has a lot of problems with their villains, but I think it's to put that hero on the next step in the ladder. And if you spend more time with the villain, you have to spend less time with the hero, and I think they really want to be more hero-centric.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this is what I really love about the MCU. And I think Guardians of the Galaxy 2, well, enjoyable. I just like the other ones better.
Okay, that's fair.
And
that's fair.
Number 9, this is Doctor Strange. What do you think about this one?
It had a different feel to it. I really liked it because it was unlike any other Marvel film we've seen because it was true magic. Now, the Scarlet Witch brings it up a little bit, but, we don't know it as magic. Well, Doctor Strange, straight up says, this is magic, man. And we haven't seen magic up in the MCU to that point. I think very strategically, because we've seen supernatural elements in previous superhero movies, and usually when it's thrown in too early, it tends to flop. Perfect example would be Suicide Squad. Their main villain, huge supernatural villain.
That is the one DCU film I have not seen.
Oh, it's grown on me in successive viewings, but it's still not good because I feel like supernatural elements are extremely hard to tackle and do it well. So I was actually a good fan. I love Benedict Cumberbatch. That smoky voice.
Yeah, and he was the first choice. And then he couldn't do it because he was attached to other projects. So they moved this movie back 6 months to get him, which I think, would DC do that, or would they go into their second choice? I think that's what I make about Marvel, because they have the movie first,
mm-hmm.
and I don't think Warner Brothers probably would have done that.
No, I think they would have moved on. And Benedict Cumberbatch, he just does such a good job as Doctor Strange. He is Doctor Strange. He plays the ego to just key in the beginning.
I mean, he was the guy fans wanted, and Marvel wanted him too. The second guy on the list, and I didn't even know this when I rewatched the movie the other day, was Ethan Hawke from Boyhood and the Magnificent Seven reboot.
Yeah.
I think he would have done a great job, but I'm just saying Benedict Cumberbatch is something special, and there's other people that could play that role, but it was just so different. And I think that I said Avengers Age of Ultron is the movie that suffers most from a second viewing. I think Doctor Strange is a movie that's added most by a second and third viewings.
I think that's fair.
I saw it for my fourth or fifth viewing the other day, and where it's the opening shot where you have the Ancient One and you have the villain, and calls her a hypocrite, mm-hmm. and it's really fast and it's kind of in the background and there's a lot of other stuff going on, and I didn't get that from my first few viewings. And then you know the twist, and you're like mind blown.
Yeah, you get it all of a sudden.
And his, the second in command with the Ancient One, the Christopher Eiffelfor's character, where he's actually one of these big villains.
Yeah,
to Doctor Strange.
Is it Mondu?
Yeah, that sounds right.
Yeah, because he starts leaving at the end, and then in one of the more recent movies, the after credit scene on that, he shows
there's
villain.
Too many sorcerers. And I just think this is one where I knew about the character and I had experience with the character, but upon doing more like Wikipedia and Google searches, find out all these really Easter eggs, and then watch it a second, a third, a fourth time, and I see all these little things, and I think Doctor Strange is number 9 on my list because of all the repeat viewing. The material is added.
Okay.
Now, number 8. This is a film that I like a lot more than I think a lot of people do. Captain America: The First Adventure, with Joe Johnston, who also did Jurassic Park 3, which is a movie that I believe I like more than a lot of other people, and he directed Jumanji with Robin Williams, which I enjoy a lot.
Yeah, I would probably have this one farther back on my list. You know, it was when I first saw it, and I liked it after more viewings. I wasn't huge on it when I first saw it. I was like, okay, it's cool. It's a setup, you know. But it didn't rock my socks.
Yeah, I think this is all the other Marvel movies are set in the modern day. This, I think, it's true to the comic book character. If he is this World War II propaganda hero, which then gets forced into action, and I think they did the super soldier serum well. I think the effects in this, when you have Skinny Scott, and then you have and it's just they had to film those scenes with Skinny Steve 4 times, where you had one with him, one with the body double, and then one with nobody there, and they're acting to air 3 times.
Yeah.
And it's just like that, so much work. But the character, when he has the super soldier serum, and the character without it, it's the same character, and he has all these motivations. And I think of all the actors in the MCU, Captain America is not my favorite character, but Chris Evans plays him so well.
Oh, he does.
And you just look at the difference between Johnny Storm and the 2000s Fantastic Four films, and then you look at this, and it's hard to believe it's the same guy.
Yeah, he did he went to some acting classes, let's just say, between those 2 movies.
And how Marvel does such a job of grabbing unknown guys and putting them in. And taking gambles on guys that, like, you look at Robert Downey Jr. Iron Man. This was a guy that he was nominated for Chaplin in 1991, I believe. And then he had problems with drugs and he went to jail. And then his acting career was basically dead. And Marvel was like, let's take a chance on you to be Iron Man. And now he's one of the biggest movie stars in the world because of Iron Man.
Well, let's be honest, it kind of worked because Iron Man is known for his struggles with alcohol anyway. So.
Yes, but I'm just...
Funny aside.
Other studios probably wouldn't have hired him due to his past actions.
Yeah.
And I just think Chris Evans as Captain America is amazing. So, again, this is a film which I have a lot... It's number 7 on my list of 16, but I think I have it a lot lower than other people would have it. Iron Man.
No, see, I liked Iron Man a lot. And I give it credit, and I don't know if I should, because it was the set-up film. I mean, it kicked off the whole MCU. Because what are the odds that if that was just an absolute flop, that they continued on with the MCU?
Marvel took a huge risk when they're like, before they are like, well, Sony wants to make a Spider-Man movie, we'll give Sony a Spider-Man movie so we can sell more comic books. Or Fox wants to make the X-Men movie, so they'll make the X-Men movie so we can sell more comic books. Or Blade, or you get the picture. Where they're like, the comic books are great because of all this crossover. Nobody can do that if we give some to Marvel, we give some to Fox, we give some to Sony. The crossover, and they planned it from the beginning to have this Avengers, but they didn't do what Universal did, which let's have a movie to set up this movie, or what Warner Brothers did, and let's have a movie to set up these movies. Iron Man does set it up, but they put the character first, and they put the story first, and Jon Favreau is one of these guys which he's a fantastic director that not many people know. He did Iron Man. I love the Zathura movie he did. The Jungle Book, the new one, was amazing. And now he's doing a live-action Lion King. And he's a guy that they said 5-6 years down the road might be on a short list to make a Star Wars film.
Oh. Can't wait.
And he's just, this guy, he doesn't have the name recognition of Spielberg, but Jon Favreau is one of my favorite directors.
Yeah, no, he's definitely good, and he's incognito in the movies, too.
Yeah, he plays Happy Hogan. Yeah. And he is so much that character. And I think, Marvel does such a good job of having secondary and tertiary characters that stand out.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why Iron Man is number 7. And number 6 is Captain America Civil War. The problem with this is it's a great film. But what makes it a great film is it has the one great airport scene. And I think a lot of people think that scene is the movie. And I enjoy the other parts of this movie. But when I remember it, I'm going to remember that one scene versus other movies have more consistency of having great scene, great scene, great scene.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this is Avengers 2.5, but it does such a good job with the Captain America storyline.
Mm-hmm.
And again, this isn't... I don't hate this movie. It's just I love 5 Marvel movies better.
Well, obviously you don't hate it. It's number 6 on the list. I was underwhelmed by the villain of this movie. Granted, he does all the mean stuff and sets out the plot that he does with having no superhuman abilities at all, which, credit to him, I was just underwhelmed by him.
But I think that's what this movie needed, and you needed just the guy to pull the strings, and I am a huge fan of Daniel Bruhl. I talked about Rush a couple weeks ago, and if you you're familiar with that film?
No.
Well, he plays Niki Lauda, this race car driver, and
okay, Rush. Yeah, I am.
Yeah, and I love him from that, so him showing up in here is like, so cool. And then they got Martin Freeman as one of the S.H.I.E.L.D. guys, and he's going to be in Black Panther. And this is a very good film. I just like a lot of films better. And this is the newest MCU film, and I'm going to get a lot of controversy for putting it this high, Spider-Man Homecoming. I think Spider-Man Homecoming, I've talked about multiple times on the show, the villain aspect of Michael Keaton and having be an anti-Tony Stark and having just that blue-collar guy that's doing the wrong things for the right reasons.
I've got dissent here, Justin. I liked Michael Keaton as the Vulture. However, my major gripe with that character is how, in the beginning, he was this dad trying to provide for his family. Awesome guy. By the end, he's not so great of a guy anymore. He develops in a short period of time, mind you, to a guy who is ready to kill a kid to provide for his family.
I think that's what makes this movie great, because he is so evil and he's doing all the wrong stuff for the great reasons. And he is going to go that far. I don't think other villains would go that far, and that's why I think he is one of the greatest villains in the MCU. Besides the villain, we've had Spider-Man movies before with Sony. You had Tobey Maguire that was a good Peter Parker, not so great Spider-Man. Andrew Garfield was a horrible Peter Parker, and he was a good Spider-Man. What Tom Holland brings to this film, and it is the John Hughes high school movie in a superhero film, it has that comedic sidekick with Ned, and he's the guy in the chair. And this movie has so many great parts that come together to make a great film.
I also really enjoyed the relationship between Tony Stark and Peter Parker. I thought that was a great back and forth.
So, Spider-Man Homecoming, number 5. So, Spider-Man Homecoming was my 5th favorite film. Number 4, Guardians of the Galaxy. I love this film. I love this. Again, these are C, maybe D level characters of Marvel before the film. And now, Halloween, you see Groots and Rocket everywhere. I think it is so nostalgic for the 1980s. And you have the Walkman and people are spending like $150, $200 to buy the Walkman that he has in this film.
See, I would never do that. I would just get the soundtrack.
I have both soundtracks. I have the first one on CD, and they released a cassette version, which I bought to put on my shelf and look cool, and then I bought the cassette version of the second one.
Did you, put it in a plaque like he has on the ship?
I do not. It's on a bookshelf, but I think I mentioned Baby Driver a couple weeks ago, and that used music so well. I think this used music so well. And it took songs I wasn't familiar with, or kind of familiar with, and now they're stuck in my head all the time.
Oh yeah, I totally agree. I love the soundtrack. One of my favorite songs from Guardians of the Galaxy 2 is "They Come a Little Bit Closer, You're My Kind of Man." I love that song.
I love every song on the soundtrack. And this is just, I'm driving down the street and I just pop it in my player or put it on my phone, and the soundtrack is great. I think the villain is Ronan was really good for MCU level villains. And just the family dynamic of these guys that are together, they don't know each other in this situation. They have to learn to overcome obstacles together. And then at the end, they're like a family. I love Guardians of the Galaxy.
I like that it was just so different. They were in space. Space has been kind of alluded to, but they actually took us there. And I liked the creation of, well, what space looks like in the Marvel Universe. It's very bright.
Yes, and this Thanos his daughters are Nebula and Gamora, and he is the big bad for Infinity War. And they had him here to tease that, but I didn't feel like in Iron Man 2 or Thor the Dark World where like this is to tease future movies. I thought it worked in this movie, and I feel like this movie works as an MCU film, even though it's disjointed from the MCU, but it also works as its own film. And I think this movie being so good was why I put Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 at number 10 out of 16. I just absolutely adore this. I adore the characters, and I started reading the comic books. I'm very looking forward to Infinity War because in the comic books you have Tony Stark. He is one of the Guardians of the Galaxy. He's one of the characters that comes and goes. And I think to see that in the movie, I'm very excited for that.
Yeah, I have him flying around next to Star-Lord with his whatever jetpack thing he uses.
And number 3 on my list is Captain America Winter Soldier. Again, this felt very different than the other films. This isn't really a superhero film. It's more like the government drama. The twist with Hydra where they're in S.H.I.E.L.D. the whole time just blew my freaking mind.
Robert Redford, is that his name?
Yeah, Sundance from Butch Cassidy and Sundance
he was
Kid.
a great villain. I loved him in this movie. I have nothing but good things to say about Winter Soldier. I absolutely loved it when I saw it.
And the directors are the Russo brothers. That they also did Captain America: Civil War. They're doing the new Avengers: Infinity War, and these guys were directing the episodes of Community before they were doing Winter Soldier. And these are two unknown directors known for TV that they got to do this big budget movie, and I think it worked well. They think it worked well because they hired them to do 4 more of their movies afterwards. And this is just so different, but it's so good. And you look at the Captain America movie, it's the one that where this is such an improvement over the original film, where I love the first Avenger. I hate the title, but I love the movie. And then this is just so good versus Iron Man 2 was a step back. Thor 2 was a step back. Guardians 2, I know you love it, but I thought it was a little bit of a step back. But Winter Soldier, it improves. Age of Ultron was a step back. Winter Soldier, it improves on the first material. And this is going to be a surprise, but my number 2 film is The Avengers. I absolutely love The Avengers, and I just think it was, you were expecting greatness, and you were expecting all these characters to be what they were, and then they did exactly what you wanted and more. You have Maria Hill, which was a great part of this movie. Nick Fury was a great part of this movie. You have that team dynamic, which this was the first time. This was a movie that I had huge expectations for, and it lived up to the hype.
Oh, it absolutely did. And one thing that a lot of people were commenting on about it when it came out is it was funny. It was really funny. It was funnier than any other superhero movie we had seen to this point.
Well, that is a testament to Joss Whedon. And he is, over the course of his career, he has added comedic moments and dramatic moments so well. If I have not seen any, I've seen a handful of Buffy the Vampire Slayer's episodes, but I am a huge Firefly guy, and that's his baby. And he wrote Toy Story, which is hilarious. this is why I'm excited for Justice League, because he wrote Cabin in the Woods, which I was talking about earlier. He is my guy. If his name is attached to a project, I'm in there day one. I'm a huge Joss Whedon fan, and he did Age of Ultron, which I enjoyed, but there's only a handful of movies that beat 5 or 6 movies that I like more than the first Avengers movie.
Mm-hmm.
And if you've been listening at all to this program, you will not be surprised by my number one film. I know Brent's going to be surprised at my number one film because I am the only one in the world that thinks this highly of this film, Ant-Man.
Oh,
I saw this film 7 times in the theater.
Garbage can over here, I'm gonna Ralph. I was even thinking to myself after you said Avengers was number 2, I'm like, what's left? That's because no one remembers Ant-Man. He was the guy passed out in the freaking van in Civil War. Like, he is just such a side character.
But I have so much personal attachment to Ant-Man. I was reading the comic books in 6th grade. People in homeroom were like, why are you reading Ant-Man comics?
So your decision
I saw this film
tainted.
7 times.
It's tainted.
That is correct. But this is a film that I'm like, everybody in the world is going to love this film. I am going to nitpick this film to death. And then I saw it twice on opening day, and I was going back every week to see this movie. I love this film, and I am so excited for Ant-Man and the Wasp next year.
I mean, I gotta give him credit. He's got a very unique power. But seriously, I'm just giving you shade right now.
I understand that. I knew I was going to get shade, but I absolutely adore Ant-Man. It is my second favorite film of all time. There's only one film I like better than Ant-Man, and that's the Michael Keaton McDonald's film, The Founder.
I've heard of that. Haven't seen it.
And I worked at McDonald's for 4 years, and I love that film, and I love Ant-Man, and now we're going to talk. So after Thor Ragnarok, there's Black Panther in February, Avengers Infinity War in May, and Ant-Man and the Wasp in July of next year.
Infinity War really comes out next May?
Next May.
What?
And then 2019, we have Captain Marvel, Avengers 4, and Spider-Man Homecoming sequel. And then 2020 is Guardians 3.
Oh.
Which of these films are you most looking forward to, Brent?
Black Panther. Okay. Maybe except for Infinity War, because Infinity War is going to take us... They're bringing everyone together. They're bringing Guardians of the Galaxy, little Easter egg. That suit that was shown at the end of Spider-Man Homecoming...
Iron Spider. I almost crapped my pants. That
gets used, from my understanding, in Infinity Wars. Tony Stark, according to comic lore, built that for Spider-Man
in the Civil War comic book.
Was it Civil War?
It was Civil War comic book.
Okay.
He revealed his secret identity to the world to side with Pro Registration and Tony Stark, and he has the Iron Spider, and then he flips allegiance to the Anti-Registration.
Okay.
And I love the Civil War comic book, and the movie was well done, but I just think that comic book was just so different, and it was the secret identity, which they don't have in the MCU.
Mm-hmm. See, Infinity Wars aside, definitely Black Panther.
Yes.
Because, I'm really excited for Thor Ragnarok, but Black Panther, I want to learn about that Wakanda ganja, how he gets his powers. Michael B. Jordan is an awesome actor, and he looks even more jacked than he was in Creed. I think he's going to be... We talked about this on my show. I think he's going to be the first real physical Marvel threat.
I have 2 words for you about Black Panther. Ryan Coogler. He directed Fruitvale Station and Creed, both with Michael B. Jordan. And I absolutely adore the Rocky films. I absolutely adore Creed. He is passing on directing Creed 2 for Black Panther. And
really?
Creed 2 is going to be filmed next February and released next November, and Stallone is actually taking over directing duties.
Uh-oh.
No, Stallone is a great director. He did Rocky 2, Rocky 3, Rocky 4, and Balboa.
Yeah, I actually really do enjoy the Rocky movies.
And I just think how well he did Creed with Michael B. Jordan. I am very looking for Black Panther, but as you can tell, this whole list, Ant-Man is my favorite Marvel character, and I absolutely adore that movie. I am so glad they're making a sequel to it, and it's all because of me. I saw it 7 times in the theater.
You know what? I'm excited for more Evangeline Lilly because she's going to be in Ant-Man 2. I'm okay with that.
Michelle Pfeiffer as Janet Van Dyne as her mom.
I can't say I've been a huge Michelle Pfeiffer fan. I prefer
Batman Returns. She was Catwoman. She did so good.
She was.
And they're gonna, if they use more of that face technology for the making her younger and having more scenes of younger Michael Douglas with younger Michelle Pfeiffer, and that having scenes of them together as Ant-Man and the Wasp, and then paralleling it with Scott Lang and Hope Van Dyne, I am really excited. I love Ant-Man. I have my movie pass. I will see that like every day for like 2 weeks. I am so excited.
And you'll probably put it on number 2 of your list of best Marvel movies.
So thank you so much for listening to us this hour. I had a great time here with my guest Brent. Listen to him Fridays at 3. I am Justin Feyereisen. Find me on YouTube. And if you ever have a topic you want me to cover, tweet me at Justin's a Critic.